Priti Patel gives extra powers to the police to deal with the hard left protesters. She plans to give the Extinction Rebellion protesters 5-year jail sentences. And we talk to Ian Dale about the intolerant left and the mainstream media. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today is all about Extinction Rebellion and the Marxists who are still going around the streets dancing around with their sandals and avocados and terrible music and fashion sense. And Priti Patel is finally waking up. Priti Patel is now giving extra powers to the police to remove the protesters. She's also talking to the Justice Department to increase the jail sentences for people who are breaking the law. And not just that, essentially, they are aiming for treason because they want to bring down the whole system. Yes, so Priti Patel has now branded Extinction Rebellion protesters eco-crusaders turned criminals as she vows a crackdown on their guerrilla tactics. So the Home Secretary just made a speech yesterday to the police body about this whole thing, and she's actually said that for once we have to actually take action, and the police have been quite soft on these protesters. I do wonder if they're going to do the same thing with the BLM people. But she has said that they'll refuse point blank to allow that kind of anarchy on our streets. And I'm right behind you, as she was talking to the police, as you bring the full might of the law down upon that selfish minority. The very criminals who disrupt our free society must be stopped. And together, we must all stand firm against the guerrilla tactics of Extinction Rebellion. This is all good, and this time it's no longer just rhetoric, because she's actually genuinely changing the guidelines and the police regulations essentially in terms of the direction that they have. And she actually does also plan to increase the sentences for people who are essentially aiming to bring anarchy to this country. Yeah, so Mrs. Patel's comments come after the government has said that powers to help the police deal with disruptive protests are under constant review. And as we said, she's now planning to obviously speak to various departments, especially the Justice Department and Downing Street, to increase the sentences for these anarchists. And to prove that there is a reason she's doing this, it's because the public are moving away and shifting their support from Extinction Rebellion. At this point, with all the problems in the West with the economic crisis and people's livelihood, they don't really see this as a priority. The opinion polls shows that people care about the economy. 55% of them care about the economy, 52% care about health, 46% Brexit, 30% immigration and asylum, and only 21% care about the environment at this point. Now, as I said, we do have a special guest in this episode, which is Ian Dale, the legendary LBC presenter. We talked to him about Extinction Rebellion and various other things. So this is the part of the interview, a short version of it, where we talked about extinction and the environment in general. And there's a full version of the interview that's going to come out where we talk about the mainstream media and intolerant left, which will be posted after this video at 8 p.m. So let's find out what Ian Dale has to say. One thing that I think you mentioned was 13 years ago, I think you invited Greenpeace to do a debate on the whole kind of climate change stuff, and they refused because they said there's no need to debate. We won.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's really dangerous when someone assumes that they've won the debate, and yet there is a substantial number of people that even now, 13 years on, question. Well, they may not question climate change, but they will question whether man has made as much of a contribution to it as is said. Now, I think that is an entirely legitimate debate to have. Mm-hmm. But again, most of these people are on the left, and they try and shut down the argument on the basis that they've won it already. Well, I don't think that argument is shut. I think my views have evolved over time, and at that time I was probably much more of a climate skeptic than I am now. But I just don't like any debate being... I mean, there are debates that you have to shut. I mean, I'm not going to debate with a Holocaust denier. Yeah. I'm just not. Yeah. I mean, what is the point? But when they try and equate, when they call people climate change deniers, that really triggers me, because we know what they're doing there. We know that they're trying to associate people who are skeptical about climate change with Holocaust denial, and that is outrageous.
Or flat earthers. I mean, this I think is the biggest problem, because we've done it before, especially in the West, where during the 2000s and 90s, the kind of political system and the media essentially shut down the debate on immigration. And if you were to talk about it, then you can't. And eventually that built up and imploded. And whether it's right or wrong, whether it should be anti or pro, doesn't really matter. It's the same with climate change. I mean, in this topic, I think because the Extinction Rebellion side and certain people in the media and the political system have basically said, well, yeah, the argument's over. We are going to die in 10 years' time. And we're going to have to bring down the kind of carbon emissions to zero by 2025, apparently now.
And it is actually quite cruel, because you have 10, 11-year-old kids on television crying because they are convinced that they're not going to live to 20.
We've got 5 years left, apparently.
And, and the thing is, and I can't remember whether I put this in the book, but Charles Moore, in the third volume of his biography of Margaret Thatcher, he's got a whole chapter about her and climate change. And she was the first world leader to talk about it and was convinced by it. And I didn't realise the extent to which she tried to get things moving then. Now, I think she slightly changed her views on that over latter years. But this is not an issue which the right should have let the left dominate, to be honest, and they have.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've heard this before when people on the right say, "Oh, the left now dominated it," kind of like feminism, things like that. But I don't think it's a case that the right should have embraced it. The right should have just embraced the debate. Say, let's have the debate. And I think because Margaret Thatcher, you're right. Actually, there's a video on YouTube about Margaret Thatcher's speech during the 88 or 89. About this, and there's nothing wrong. You don't have to be completely pro-extinction and think we're going to die in 10 years' time, and you don't have to completely be a denier either. There is a argument in the middle for everybody. We want clean air, we want clean water, we want good environment anyway.
But there are sensible environmentalists. Jonathan Porritt, for example. I can remember when I was probably 22, 23, doing a debate with him in Norwich when I was at university. The local Conservatives said, they've asked us to put up a Conservative to debate the environment. And like a fool, I said, okay, I'll do it. And he was so good. I was really impressed by him, partly because he knew that I wasn't particularly well versed in these issues and didn't go in for the kill as he could have done. And I interviewed him recently for my book club podcast. He's written a new book on climate change. And he gets that there are nuances to the argument. And I mean, you've read the book, you know the word nuance comes up an awful lot. And that's the unfortunate thing in most of these debates. Now, there is no nuance. It's black and white. There are no shades of grey. You are either on one side or the other. And if you're not on my side, that makes you an enemy.
You're right. Although, with the case of Extinction Rebellion, I think they are definitely damaging their own side more than any other radical movement.
Well, they're interesting because when they started, even I was sort of thinking, that they're quite good at this. They've adopted a very different approach to protests. And I thought Middle England is actually going to quite like them. And they did initially.
At the beginning,
But it soon went into, I mean, whether they were taken over by the hard left, these parasitical groups, as Rupert Reed, one of their spokespeople, has called them. I mean, he says they haven't taken them over, to be fair to him. But I think there's a lot of evidence that they have, and that some of the tactics that they're using now, I mean, for example, you prevent people from getting their morning newspaper. Do you think there's a single person in this country who thinks, oh, I know, I'll support Extinction Rebellion? Surely it is all about winning hearts and minds to your cause. That is not the way to do it.
Also, it's not 1885. People are going to be like, if I don't get my newspaper, I go on my phone to check the news. It's not like...
Well, but you see, that's their justification for it. They say, oh, well, you don't need a newspaper.
Know,
but if you're 85 years old and you love getting your Saturday newspaper because you're not on the internet, you're not... And they're going to think, well, these people die soon anyway, so they don't really count. But what an attitude!
It's bad, and I think the biggest issue you have is that the attitude that they've had. I think up to a point where, comparing to other radical movements right now, whether it's the BLM movement or other causes that's happening right now, I think Extinction are losing the respect of even these kind of centrist, elitist, metropolitan liberal media people. So because they are now an easy target. We had Priti Patel just announcing that she's ordered the police to just take them out. Well, not take them out, but like...
good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, just like... because technically speaking, mass protests are still illegal.
Yeah, but we all know that the police nowadays just don't do that.
No.
Some of us might think they should take a bit of a... I mean, you look at the Black Lives Matter protests, where because of the time that we lived in then, they were well, some of the fringes of the protesters were allowed to do whatever they liked, and that should not have happened on British streets. And that is another good example of a movement that I think had a lot of goodwill towards it, but when people actually worked out what the organisation was rather than the movement, then they took a rather different view. And
yeah, so that was Ian Dell. As I said, we do have the full version of the interview where we talk about various issues, the intolerant left, the mainstream media, and the BLM movement. So watch that after this video. I do want to give a massive shout out to Malcolm and Christine, who I bumped into earlier today in Covent Garden in central London. Malcolm and Christine are from Wiltshire. They were in London this week to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Congratulations, well done, and thanks for the support and watching the channel. I know this is also kind of not related to what we talked about today, but today is also an important day when it comes to mental health. It's about raising awareness for people who are going through dark periods in life, and if the people who give up sometimes, especially with all the problems that we've had with the lockdown, with the economic crisis, people's livelihood, and I just want to say that firstly, you're not alone. Secondly, if you feel like there's someone you know who might be in trouble, just give them a call, or send a message. And if you yourself might be feeling lonely or having dark thoughts and going through some problems, feel free to get in touch. My email address is in the description box below the video, as always. So you could find it there. Get in touch with me and I'll reply to you and have a conversation with you guys. And then, thanks again for watching. As you know, we do have a few kind of new formats and new shows that's coming out this week and next week. One of them is the video message kind of Q&A, where you guys send a video selfie essentially of yourself, like 10-20 seconds max, asking a question or just leave a comment. The phone number is 07538 605 412, or if you're calling from abroad, obviously 0044 7538 605 412. You could either WhatsApp it, or you could again send me an email with your video. Again, the email address is in the description. You could do that. And don't forget to get your merchandise. We do have the latest t-shirts, phone cases and everything. We are the media. Ignore the BBC, because this is the only channel that you should go to now. Well, and there are a couple of other outlets, but I'm not going to promote them. But we're going to be selfish here. No, it's fine. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tousi. I'll see you guys in the next video.